What's up, everyone? I have a real treat for everybody here. I was able to sit down and have a conversation with the one and only TitaniumTigerzz. We spoke about, obviously, all things Shiva, the why did NRS do this situation. We also spoke about other things like the game's mechanics, the variations, the tier list, what he sees as far as is it possible for a combat pack? Does he think that's coming? Pretty much all things MK11. I really hope you enjoy this. If you want to see more stuff like this, let me know in the comments below. Is there someone else you want to see me do a conversation with? Are there any topics you want to see me cover in future content like this? Let me know what you thought of this conversation. If you liked it, did you not like it? What did you like? What are your thoughts on his opinions, my opinions, so on and so forth. As always, thank you all so much for your support. And stay tuned for more content and enjoy my conversation with TitaniumTigerzz.
All right, what's up, everybody? MK Tom Brady here, and I've got a very special guest. I mean, you've heard me cover this topic and cover a lot about this guy on my channel. We're huge fans of this guy. I want to welcome the one and only TitaniumTigerzz. Welcome, and how you doing tonight?
Hello, I am doing well. Looking forward to this.
Excellent. Before we get into all the stuff that people really want to hear, I just want to what was your first real competitive game? I remember seeing you playing Brainiac a lot in Injustice 2, but you played every single character in the game. Was Injustice 2 your first really competitive game? Did you start before that? And if so,
Um, well, some history. My very first fighting game I ever played was Mortal Kombat X, and I got it when Triborg and them came out because I thought the robots looked cool. Some history there. But the first game I was competitive in, I feel like, was MKX because I did beat Dragon in tournament in that game. So I feel like MKX was my first competitive fighting game. I would say, but I really became known in Injustice 2. I would say, yeah.
all right. So Injustice 2 was your first time being competitive then.
Well, I guess in mass, yeah, I did compete in MKX, and I felt like I did well. But Injustice 2 was definitely a different ball game for sure.
How about
Definitely when I
tournaments,
really became it.
online, offline? Did you go to any of those in Injustice 2, or how did that
And
go?
Injustice 2, I competed in the online series War of the Gods. I did very well, made finals for it against some of the best players, but offline, I got smoked. I went to EVO, which I think EVO and Combo Breaker were the only offline events I went for in Injustice 2, and I got smoked. I got fucking destroyed.
But it was, again,
But
it was your first
I had a lot
time.
of fun.
It was your first time going for that competitive scene, correct? Was Injustice 2.
Yeah, it
You're,
is. It
okay.
was.
So here we go. Fast forward to Mortal Kombat 11. You started out day one of the game, right? You were playing the game. I saw you playing all type of characters, Scorpion, Sub-Zero.
Right,
You're
right.
someone that never really had a main. You pretty much play everybody. Is this really the case, or did you actually have a main? Or
Yeah, I pretty much I get bored with one character for any length of time, so I'll never stick with a character. It's not fun to me personally. So I just bounce around between every character. Just try to have honestly just trying to have as much fun as possible with the video game. So I just try and have fun.
so obviously, Aftermath came out, and then Ultimate, and obviously you tried all the characters out. So what was it that drew you to Shiva, and what made you decide to actually pick her up as this is the character I'm gonna start pulling out more than others in competitive games?
I thought she was by far by a mile the funniest character to play at a high level. Um, Characters like, for instance, Sub-Zero. If I forward to somebody and they get hit, I think that's funny, but I'm not having a lot of fun. I just think it's really funny when they hit somebody. I think Shiva is the epitome of that. I think she is the funniest, most hilarious character to play. If you hit somebody with a stomp 3 times in a row and get the crushing blow and they lost 50% of their health over the course of that, that is one of the just the best feelings in the world to me, fighting the best people on the planet and just knowing that they can't. Once I go up, whatever you do, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna see if it hits. It's one of the funniest things ever to me.
So when you played her in Aftermath, she obviously wasn't as good. You didn't have custom variations, so
Nope.
she couldn't even use her dragon stance, which is her fireball stance, and her Stomp wasn't as powerful either, right? So they obviously made her better by doing customs. What changes did they make to the Stomp?
They increased the active frames on it, which makes a lot of sense, honestly, because some characters could actually kind of low profile it. And they increased its tracking. They made its tracking way better, so in reality, there was no way around it 100% of the time, which means you could always be hit. Once I got in the air, you could always be hit.
When did you realize this was the character you're going to start maining and pulling out against other top players in matchups and tournament?
I realized that when I started to play with my training partners, and they could not do anything about the stomp, and then I really started to realize I was going to start pulling it out on a regular basis, when I labbed it, and I found the inner workings on how to fully abuse stomp, some setups are actually guaranteed to land stomp, which is incredible. There are actually some setups where once I end up in the air, you cannot stop it, and you will always be hit.
See, I feel like
no matter what you do because of an OS that you can do with it.
I feel like people at first looked at stomps, even in Ultimate once it was buffed, as this is kind of gimmicky. We all know the real issue is the fireball stance, right? I feel like that's how she was looked at first. You were really probably the first person where people started to look at this and say, dude, this dude is literally stomped this guy 10 times in a row. You know, and then I think at first it got dismissed as, well, it's just scrubs this is hitting on, right? It's never going to hit on these top players, right? And then it starts to hit on these top players, and then kind of the outcry began. I mean, is that how you remember it, or?
I remember it as like, nobody played Shiva at a high level in that way, but until I did. But the reason I think that is because despite how funny Shiva's stomp is, at the end of the day, against every character, even somebody who doesn't know how to get around stomp, you have to read where they're going to go. Because at the end of the day, if you just do regular stomp and you don't aim it, it's going to miss. No matter, they're going to frantically be moving, and it's going to miss, and you're going to get punished. But honestly, I see Shiva as like I'm just constantly attempting to read my opponent, which is why it just works. And not everybody can just, in my opinion anyway, just read people or is comfortable just leading it up to a read constantly. Where you have to read.
So let's go
you can enforce situations. You can enforce situations that's highly favorable to you, but at the end of the day, when everything's, flat out in neutral and you stop, you have to read. But go ahead, Sai.
No, that's fine. All right, so let's go to the why did NRS do this thing? Obviously, this got all the attention. You made a name. Why did NRS do this? First of all, what was the thought behind the name? Like, what were you thinking when you made the name? Like, were you honestly like, hey, why did they do this? Were you trolling? I mean, what were you thinking when you made the name?
I was thinking, I just thought to myself that I was having so much fun playing the character and just watching people have no ability to stop me. And in mass, like top level players that have labbed it for hours, just not being able to stop me. At the end of the day, they just have to guess. And when I looked at it, this is back when Fireball Stance was a thing too. I looked at it and you gave her this tool that just already good with Fireball Stance, and then you gave her a buff Stomp. And I was just like, why did they do this? This is dumb. I just thought it was just so unnecessary.
So take me through that tournament. So you beat, your first match was Mike Trelinsky, right? And you used a different variation name, correct? You didn't use, why did NRS do this?
I used Brain Off, my coveted Brain Off variation.
All right, so the set in question against Crispy Fungus, I think it was, right? This is this is the first time in that top 8 that you actually pulled out that name. So take us through what happened. What happened? You're playing your match, and then what happened?
Okay, so I'm playing my match. I won the first game, not that people got to see, but I won my first game playing the just repeatedly stomping over and over again. And while I'm getting ready into the next game, getting all rolled up and ready, somebody in my ear, somebody I'm partying with, he puts on the mic and he yells, I think you've been DQ'd from the tournament. And so obviously I opened Discord immediately, try to see, what's going on, and I've been kicked out of the Discord and no messages to me anywhere. So that's how it happened.
You got kicked out of the tournament Discord?
the tournament, yes, the tournament Discord for the top 8 that communicates with the players.
So wait, no one contacted you on PSN?
Nobody
on Discord?
contacted me. Never, nowhere. I have open DMs on everything. Nobody contacted me anywhere. Twitter, PlayStation, Discord, no warning. And again, they disqualified me before I was even done. So even if they did in Make-Believe Land, contact me, which they didn't, it still would have been too late.
Yeah, it has been rumored that apparently, allegedly, you were contacted by some moderator who basically
I would
said,
like to see somebody with some proof of that, some moderator that has such screenshots, but never happened.
So
Never happened.
nobody contacted you. Nobody said you better change your variation name.
Nobody.
So no one even told you were disqualified. It was somebody not even affiliated with the tournament who said, "Hey, dude, I think you were disqualified."
Somebody in my ear said the commentator said I was disqualified, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Me and Crispy Fungus, the person I was playing, we were still playing. We didn't notice. We were just playing, and then only when the commentators and everybody left the King of the Hill did I realize, oh, this is real. I'm actually disqualified.
Well, this is really highly unprofessional because you're in a tournament, so no tournament official reached out to you in any capacity to at least say you're done. The match is over.
Absolutely not. Nobody messaged me. Nothing.
So
I was kicked out of the Discord before I could even see the Discord again.
So they kicked you out. Now you told me earlier, even when you lose, they don't kick you out of the Discord. So they just kicked you out.
Yeah, even when you lose, because I was in it. I was in the Discord for the next month of it. I was in it the next month, and my opponents the opponents that lost, they were not kicked out. I think I might even still be in it right now, even though it's far over. I would have to check.
So originally you were banned from the event, right? They told you were banned.
Yeah, and also I am still in I'm still in the Discord right now this time around. But okay. Yeah, I was banned initially.
And then they just said, you know what, we'll just make it a DQ for that one event and we'll allow them back, right? Next time?
Yeah, correct. It was initially going to be a ban for the season over that.
Yeah, so for all those who had said, you know what, man, he was warned, etc., you have to keep in mind, as he just said, his very first set, he didn't even use the variation name. The only time they saw that variation name was in the middle of that first game, which even if they would have warned you, there's no way you could have even changed it until like the next match. Yeah,
it's too late. It was too late by then.
Yeah, so obviously they didn't warn you. You have no message from anybody. They just disqualified you. You had no idea why, and no tournament official. So it's pretty unprofessional, right? You and Crispy Fungus would have kept playing unless somebody came in your ear and said, dude, the commentator said you're done. The commentators never told you were done. No tournament official told you were done. No moderator, no NRS employee, no ESL. Or I guess ESL runs. I don't know who does. Nobody told you were disqualified. You had no idea unless a friend of yours told you.
Only knew from the person in my ear that turned on his mic.
And who was that? Was he a friend of yours? Was he? I mean,
it was Han Rashid.
All right, so Han Rashid, obviously, he's not a tournament official. So you would have had, no way. So, which is kind of unprofessional, right? I mean, for not only did you not get a warning, but you didn't even know you were disqualified.
No, didn't even know. Didn't even know until somebody told me. I probably would have played that entire set out without knowing. If somebody didn't tell me.
And let me ask you this. So a week later, so for those that don't know, patches normally roll out on Tuesdays, right? This happened on Sunday. All the backlash came out, and I think people knew about Shiva, but I feel like that drew all the attention because what happened was people started to heard about this and they watched the matches, and they were like, the guy has the name, why did NRS do this? And he's doing stomp, stomp, stomp. So then people started to draw attention to that. So a week later, literally the very first possible minute they could have got a patch out, they did. And the only real quote-unquote nerf was to Shiva, right?
The only thing that actually required them going in and changing frame data was to Shiva, yeah.
And they changed the fireball stance, right? And they tried to change the stomp.
They killed the fireball stance.
Yeah, they killed it. And to stomp, what did they really do? Nothing. The stomp was originally, 64 startup, 94 with full delay, and they just moved the frame forward 2 frames.
Yeah, which albeit actually does hurt in the Fujin matchup. Actually, I think it does, but generally it didn't do anything significant.
Yeah, all it does is you get off the ground 2 frames slower, but once you get off the ground, nothing. It's exactly the same. Once you've left the screen, nothing really changes, right?
Yes. But for situations where speed really does matter by the frame, I think it does matter. But usually, it's just by and large doesn't change it now.
Yeah, like I've seen you play matches against Fujin, and it'll be last second, and the difference is they barely clipped your foot as you're about to get off screen, and that would have been the difference too. Stomp landing.
Yeah, or when they're trying to react to fly away from it. Previously, you couldn't. It was less consistent to fly away from it than what it is now, because they can airwalk away from it, right? It used to be that was more inconsistent, significantly more inconsistent, mind you.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I have to ask if people want to know this. Obviously, everybody complains about Shiva. It should be nerfed, etc. They claim that they've labbed Shiva over and over and over again. Now, in my opinion, I find that it's the people that play the best characters in the game, Jackie, Fujin, etc., that have the most to say about Shiva, right? I mean, is this what you're finding in your experience? Obviously,
absolutely, because they're not used to labbing.
Yeah, so you would say that the top tier characters are so strong that normally they don't really have any resistance, right? I mean, you have to deal with them, but they don't deal with you, right? You have to do
exactly.
So now here's a scenario in which they have to lab Shiva, and it's just like, why am I getting stomped, right? I can't avoid it.
And it takes a lot of labbing to understand Shiva's stomp from both an offensive and defensive position. So the fact that they can't go in the lab and immediately understand what to do is why they're complaining.
Where would you say Shiva is on the tier list? Like, who are the top 5 characters, and where's Shiva in retrospect to them?
Okay, so I'll say the top 5 in order, in my personal opinion, would be Jackie, then Cetrion. Then I think it gets a little bit hazy here because I want to say Liu Kang, but I also want to say Fujin, and then I would say Noob Saibot.
Noob over Joker. Where would you have Joker in there?
Joker is a bit of a sore spot for me because I have no issue with Joker. I believe that Joker is one of the best characters on paper, but he just has losing matchups. He has genuine losing matchups, which the normal top tier do not have losing matchups.
You could say Noob has similar problems, as well. Can you not?
I would say that Noob does what Joker does, but better in a lot of ways. I see Noob completely controlling neutral with slide, while also not being able to be any kind of zone because of teleport that combos into 40%.
What do you say about...
Good.
No, what do you say about people that... So what you see more commonly now with Joker, and I want your thoughts on this. So it used to be people pretty much play the normal cookie cutter of Joker, right? And then we started to see people, they take the his bounce move, and then they take the corpse toss, right? What are those? Those are both 1-slot moves each, right? I believe.
Yeah. The corpse toss is 1. Yeah.
And the bounce is 1 or 2.
Okay, yeah. What's up? The bounce is 1. Bounce is 1. They're both 1. Yeah.
So they take corpse bounce. They take the corpse toss, the bounce, and of course the glove, right? The punching glove. The
punching glove is 2 slots.
Oh, it's 2. Okay, so they take those 2 and something else. So they'll take the bounce, they take the corpse toss and something else. But ideally, I find that Joker players are starting to incorporate that bounce a lot more, right? I mean, I do see it a lot, or at least the corpse toss, or some way, shape, or form. Like you're starting to see Joker's meta shift.
Yeah, I've definitely seen more corpse drop more than anything for sure, and I have seen bounce been used, but there is a very big issue with bounce is that the characters that already beat Joker naturally deal with bounce really well. So I actually don't consider it to be a good move, honestly. I don't think bounce is a good move. Despite Joker players' best efforts to incorporate it, I see it as very gimmicky.
Overall, let's say it's a character that doesn't shut Joker down. How good do you think that move then becomes? A match that would have been even, and now he adds bounce and whatever. Like, how important are customs to Joker? Like Joker's normal matchups. Like some characters, matches they win even. Now with customs they win. Or some matches they lost. Now with customs they go even. Like characters that don't shut him down.
Say,
but those in between matches, like what do you think happens with his customs?
Specifically with Joker, I actually think that customs as a whole has done almost nothing for him. The way I see most of the best players, like Ninja Killer when they play Joker, or Sonic Fox when they play Joker, they incorporate the Kapow string, the two slot launcher, with the Jack in the Box, which basically all this does is create just a much higher damage variation of Joker. Idea to play Joker. Just more damage. Just do more damage when you hit them, and that's pretty much the whole idea of customs with Joker.
But you definitely have him in the top, right? He's definitely one of the better characters.
He is definitely one. Oh yeah, he's not a mid tier. I wouldn't go. Okay, I'm not crazy now.
That's where I was going because
I just would not put him in the top 5.
But maybe number 6.
Because I would actually honestly put Kodal above him, and then maybe Joker.
But he's definitely in that.
He's in the realm of like indistinguishable, you know.
He's in that brick of 5, 6, 7, right? He's kind of in that.
Yeah, he's super good. No, okay. Yeah, I'm not trying to downplay him too hard, you know.
And where would you put Shiva,
he's
for example?
Shiva, I would put her at the 12-ish to 11-ish range, and I might be upplaying her.
Well, why do you say that? Like some people will say, "Come on, Tigers, you're downplaying the character. She's the most broken thing in MK11," which. If that's the case, that would have to put her at least in a top 5 discussion, right? If she truly was, least, like, but okay. So how do you see her in like the tier list, and why?
In reality, I have probably spent upwards of 30 actual hours labbing Shiva's Stomp and applying it to every character in every way that they can get out of it. And it turns out a lot of the cast has some really good options against it. And there's even some specific ways you can move to OS most of her Stomp with some characters. It just turns out that, you know, if you lab against Shiva with your character, unless you're like Collector, you probably have an option you don't know about already. If you're still having trouble with Shiva at a really bad level, or alternatively, the Shiva player is literally just reading where you're going to go, and they're hitting you because they're aiming it forward, and you walk forward, as is the whole point of the move. If you are losing to regular Stomp without it being aimed, it's probably because you haven't labbed it properly.
That's what I wanted to go. How many times have you found yourself hitting someone with the same Stomp over and over again and realize, this guy thinks I'm hitting him with the forward stomp or the backward stomp, and he doesn't realize I'm doing the same one over and over again, and realize he doesn't know. It's not a matter of me abusing a broken mechanic. He just actually doesn't know how to avoid it.
Yeah, it's every other top player I fight. That might be doing it over. That might actually be inaccurate. It's like every top player I fight.
Wait, I find this hard to believe. Wait. So you're saying these top players who play the best characters in the game, you're saying a lot of what people are saying, you do agree the move is rightfully considered ridiculous, right? It is.
It's good. It's a damn good move.
It's kind of like, come on, man, it is a little much, which is hence your name. Why did NRS do this? So you do agree it can be a little much, right?
It's crazy good.
Okay.
It's actually too good. But it's let me put it into perspective properly. If she didn't have it, she would be terrible. She would be Shao Kahn tier, for sure. Absolutely.
What would you say if they didn't nerf the fireball stance but toned down the stomp? She would still be somewhat viable, right? If it just one.
Oh, yeah. The fireball stance actually gave her neutral and chip options and mind games. She doesn't have any of that right now.
Well, what's the fireball stance used for now? So obviously you can't use it off forward 1 or forward 4/4, those other ways. So how do you use it now?
The fireball stance, as far as I know, nobody uses it because it's terrible. I was under the impression, like, I've tried it, you know, like, of course you'd still try a move after it's been nerfed, but if you hit somebody and then go into fireball stance, it just doesn't combo. For some reason, they thought they would make it not combo anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Which is insane. And then they decided, okay, well, they're not going to let it combo, so surely, you know, it's still an okay chip move that just doesn't combo. No, everybody can just press out of it, and it's not like they have to make a read to press out. They can always just press out. So it's like, okay, you can't do this on block, you can't do it to combo, so now it's only a zoning tool. Okay, so how good is it at zoning? It's terrible. It's god awful. It can't keep anybody out.
So they gutted the
It just
move.
can't.
They gutted the move.
They gutted it. They completely destroyed it.
Yeah.
Which you would think just a 2-frame nerf wouldn't be that bad, but it literally destroyed the only two things it was good for.
In your opinion, how much of this nerf was in response to you making it to the top 8 and possibly be in danger of winning the next time they allowed you in? How much of this nerf was like, well, let's nip this in the bud and kind of stop this from being on stream?
I would say the stomp nerf was solely because of me. I could not tell you that the Dragon Stance nerf was just because of me, because Foxy Grandpa was using that as well a lot. But I could not personally tell you on the Dragon Stance, but I'm pretty damn sure the Stomp nerf was a love letter to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a change made so quickly, right? From
really quick.
out of nowhere, nobody had anything to say. Then the why did NRS do this get attention? Everybody started speaking out, and literally 7 days later, like that, right? They nerfed it. So, all right. So while you admit, and we all agree, the stomp is too good, right? You admit it's too good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's too good. Absolutely.
But
it's. I would go as far as to say it's kind of an unfair game mechanic.
But you're also saying that a lot of these top players, if not all of them, that are getting hit by it, at least half the time they're getting hit by stomp is more so because they just never labbed how to deal with it, as opposed to they just couldn't avoid it. Because it gets painted out as these top players are helpless to avoid this stomp. But you're saying at least 50% of the stomps you hit them with were avoidable. They just didn't know how to avoid it.
Oh yeah, I won't even say 50%. I'll say 90% of the stomps I do, you have the ability to avoid it, and because people, especially top players, even Ninja Killer, by the way, they don't really understand stomp. I don't know if they were fucked to even bother labbing it to begin with a lot of the time.
So a lot of the stomps you're hitting with isn't because you guessed right and angled it forward and, man, they just guessed wrong. It's like they actually had no idea what to do, and you were just doing the same old delay stomp sometimes, and they just didn't know how to avoid it.
Pretty much. That is the case a lot of the time. Though I will say, some people go a different route, where they only do one thing that they labbed over and over again. So I know where to aim and delay, because they do the same thing over and over again, because they labbed it, and they improperly labbed it, and they labbed it and said, okay, this got away from the stop. Great, let's use it every single time. But it's not a move that you can just say, okay, you know what, I do this and it's away from it every time. That's not a thing. So if you do the same thing every single time, I'm going to counter that every single time, repeatedly. And you'll see that happen a lot, where they might get away from it at first, but at the end of the day, if they keep on doing the same thing, they're going to be hit for it.
What do you have to say about those people who, and this is why the top players get referenced a lot, everybody's they reference all the top players playing the best characters, this guy playing Fujin, that guy playing Jackie, this person playing Cetrion, this person playing that character or that character, these characters, and they couldn't get out of it. So this is why the move is busted. Is it possible, in your opinion? I mean, I guess, I don't know. Could it be, how much stuff you've labbed Jackie, a lot of these other top characters, that, you spent obviously a lot of time labbing them to compete at high level. How much labbing, I guess, do you think these players actually have to do? Or do you think they're just used to just, hey, my character's top? A lot of the ban Jackie argument back when the ban Jackie movement, probably the take on that was you kind of have to lab her. A lot of these characters like her don't really have to worry about anything. They just play their game and you have to do all the labbing against it. Do you think that maybe when you're playing these characters like that, they kind of just steamroll most of the game and along comes Shiva and they finally have to lab something for once?
Yes. So the reason why Shiva's different than every other character in the game, like actually all of them, is because you can't overcome Shiva with your character's overpressing toolset. When Jackie's on you, it doesn't actually matter what character you are. Even if you're a top tier, even if you're Jackie herself, you have to deal with it. There is no option around it. You always have to deal with it. So everybody, no matter who they are, has to figure out how to fight against Jackie. That is universal. And when a Jackie player plays against Jackie, they hate it too. They hate the mirror because they don't lab it. They don't know what to do against their own character. But they can't complain about their own character either. But then comes along Shiva. Shiva is a character that no matter who you are, she equalizes. You have to lab it. You have to lab it in depth. You have to understand every possible option that I can do. Okay? But they don't want to lab it. They just think like, okay, so how dare this other character have an unbeatable option, air quotes, an unbeatable option that I don't understand immediately. When in reality, Jackie, you could probably spend more time labbing Jackie's forward 3 and her forward 1 than Shiva's stomp, and still not understand everything on what you can do.
So I'm trying to understand. So what you're saying is that a lot of these characters, like for example, so usually they can do what they want when they want, and it's kind of up to you to kind of stop it, right? They don't really think twice. Like if Fujin wants to do whatever, he back to Skywalker amplify, forward 3, Jackie leap, Cetrion, whatever, teleport 1/1, whatever. They don't. Who cares, right? Even some of the stuff Liu Kang does, right? Fireballs, whatever he's gonna do, right? They don't really care. And then here comes Shiva, and they're like, well, I may want to leap here, or I may want to zone here, or I may want to teleport here, or a Hell's Wrath here, or whatever Fuji's going to do, slide here, or whatever. But I have to wait because this may be the moment she gets off the screen, right? So it makes them kind of hesitate. So a lot of these players who claim they want neutral, you could say a lot of times by you playing Shiva, you finally force them to actually play neutral, where you can't leap anytime you want. You can't back 2 anytime you want, or slide anytime you want, or zone, or rock wall, or teleport anytime you want. You actually force them to stop for 2 seconds and think, what is the Shiva player going to do, right?
Yeah, God forbid you make a Fujin player stop for 2 seconds and think. They're allergic to that. But they don't like actually playing neutral or actually playing the game and things like that.
So even though,
which is why they pick those characters, like Jackie.
So the gripe just happens to be Shiva's doing this with only one move, right?
Yeah, exactly. Shiva can do all of that with just one move. One godforsaken move.
And you made a statement earlier on Jackie. You said you've spent countless times labbing Jackie. Because what we always hear is, you don't,
just
remember the
immeasurable amounts of time.
Remember the ban Jackie movement. You don't lab Jackie. You don't lab Cetrion. You don't lab this character or this character. Right? All this stuff, right? You made a statement on, you felt earlier you said to me, you feel the number 1 character is Jackie, correct?
Yeah, by a mile.
And number 2 is?
Cetrion.
Now, you made a statement about Jackie is so good that the gap between her and Cetrion is pretty big. Give me what you were talking about.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. I think the gap between Jackie and Cetrion is the same gap between Cetrion and RoboCop. Jackie is a goddamn superhero in this game. She has everything. She doesn't play neutral footsies. She doesn't deal with jump-ins. She jumps in like... In the game that has broken jump-ins, she has the best jump-ins in the game. She has the best jump-in options in the game. The easiest trip guards, some of the best movement speed, a dash punch that she doesn't even really need, but she has. That should give you an idea how good she is. She has an instant get-in tool she doesn't even need. She doesn't even use it that much. That's how good she is in neutral. Why do dash punch when you can just do a full launching mid-back 2 that's unreactable and full combo launches into her pressure, into a setup off of a back throw, into full screen corner carry, into zoning, into damage over time. By the way, the fastest ticking damage over time in the game, for some reason. It's just, she is insane. And you don't even need to use just the damaging and zoning version. You can mix and match any one of her abilities with Leap and Shrapnel Charge, and you'll have a completely new beast that you have to spend hours of labbing.
So you admit that there are some characters that Shiva just steamrolls, right? She just stop, can't do anything about it.
Oh
right?
yeah, just like any other top tier, there are characters that she just steamrolls, absolutely destroys. Collector cannot do anything. It is almost inconceivable for a Collector to win the matchup if played properly by Shiva.
Yeah, here's what I understand.
It is almost inconceivable. And then there are characters that can do almost nothing, like Kotal Khan can do almost nothing against Shiva.
So he has a huge
his
problem.
Massive
Stomp.
hitbox. Yeah, his massive hitbox.
Okay.
And his big, weird, like, movement when he dashes that leaves his legs so wide. It, like, when you hit Kotal Khan specifically, you'll look at it and be like, how the hell did that even hit? Because she stomped on your toes when she landed. It's just some really jank hitboxes that Shiva can hit. And that causes things like, and that's, in the end of the day, sorry, that's why it's so good. Because it appears jank against some characters, is why it's so consistent, is why you can always use it in every matchup.
Yeah, but she does just steamroll some characters, right? Just clearly.
She
right?
does steamroll. Like Jackie does and like Fujin does, she can just end somebody.
And you consider that unfair,
I will
right?
definitely say
unfair, right?
that... Go ahead, sorry.
You would say she does present all those people that are saying this is unfair, it prevents unfair situations. They're not wrong, right? Is what you're saying? Like,
they're not wrong. Shiva is an unfair character by design. The stomp is unfair, and I think it needs to be changed from the ground up without murdering her. Because if they remove stomp, then she's Robocop tier, or even below. I honestly think quite below. But if they leave it the way it is, she's a top 12 character that either gets 7-3 by Fujin, Sub-Zero, and Jackie, or completely destroys the opponent. Just on some crazy stuff. There's probably no matchup in this game that is as bad as Shiva versus Collector.
Well, what about all these people that say all this nonsense when people were saying Jackie steamrolls this character, or Cetrion does steamrolls, or Liu Kang steamrolls a character, or Fujin steamrolls a character, that these are over-exaggerations. That these players are just getting they're getting out-neutraled, and this game is so balanced that there's not really these 7-3 situations when it comes to Jackie, etc. So you're saying Jackie, Fujin, so on and so forth, they present quite a few steamrolls as well, where just characters are just stuck there, right?
They definitely do present quite a few steamrolls as well. I would say Fujin 7-3 Shiva as a good example, which is a lot of Shiva's matchup chart. It's either she mobs or she gets mobbed. But Jackie, though, I don't think Jackie goes even with a single character in the game. I don't think she goes 5-5 with a single character. I think she beats every single character, and she usually, among the lower end of the cast, I think she's 7-3 Shao Kahn for sure, and maybe even 8-2 Shao Kahn. Things like that. And I say that because if you try and compare the two on any level, Shao Kahn can't do anything anywhere at any point in time.
What percentage of the cast would you say characters like the top tier 7-3? What percentage of the cast?
I would say that Jackie is a unique monster. I think she does way better than I think her matchup chart is incredibly worse slanted than everybody else's. If I were to say just her, then she would probably 7-3 over half the cast. But to take a step down to Cetrion, she 7-3s probably just a few characters here and there. I think Cetrion versus Baraka, 7-3 Cetrion for sure. Some matchups are just completely unfair for winning for her. But unlike, say, Jackie, Cetrion has answers. She does have losing matchups here and there. I think she loses to Noob. I think she might lose to Kotal, things like that when played at a really high level and super properly. I think then you go into Fujin. Then he really doesn't 7-3 many characters, it's just he doesn't really lose to anybody either. He does really well against everybody, for sure, and wins most characters, but I wouldn't say he really 7-3s very commonly. And then after that, it gets, more balanced, more within the general masses to me.
Yeah, but I mean, these characters obviously, but for sure, they're just as devastating, if not more devastating than Shiva. So why is it that Shiva...
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is Shiva next on the chopping block? Why did we go over a year, or at least a year of Fujin, over a year of Jackie, etc., and it just turns out that Cetrion, that these characters really need not many touches, maybe minor tweaks here and there, but they're fine as they are, and that people, tell me how you would tone down, how you would fix Shiva, and then tell me what you're hearing the community wants done to Shiva.
What the community wants of Shiva is they want a barrier in the ground and never to see her again, lest they be stomped once again in a horrible fashion. What I want though is I just want the character to be redesigned from the bottom up. I think there's a couple different ways you could do that and still make her unique and not be the worst character ever to fight. They could simply make her stomp a even better tracking overhead that cannot be flawless blocked and that's plus on block. If you get away with it, that's awesome. If you get away from it, that's awesome. You can whiff punish. But if you get hit by it, you don't get stopped. You get to play the up close game, which is what everybody in MK11. It's clearly everybody wants to play up close game. So fuck it, give them the up close game. Let Shiva in. Let Shiva in with her horrific buttons, her terrible buttons.
Yeah. Let's transition into the actual game system. So you're someone that sounds like you don't think the top characters should really be toned down. You sound like you're coming more like, and I could be wrong here, you'd much rather see the game kind of power scaled upwards, right? As opposed to taking everything down?
I would say I do not mind a really high power level in a game. I would say that's a lot more fun. But if NRS's idea of power scaling a character to be insane and, be really fun is the idea of Jackie that doesn't take any sort of ability to play fighting games, like doesn't have any idea what a projectile is because you can instantly leap in, doesn't know what neutral is because they can just back to, doesn't know what footsies is, what are you talking about, forward 3, 1, forward 1, doesn't know how to properly play pressure because they can just do 1-1, which is +2 with a 7 frame, with 9 frame mid, and if you trade, because characters don't have 6 frames, you get a full combo, and if you don't, you have to hold it. These characters don't play any aspect of the entire game. And if that's the idea of raising the power level, I hate it. But if the idea of raising power levels is making characters stronger without making them not play fighting games, I would love it to be stronger. That sounds way more fun. You wouldn't have to have Shao Kahn doing down 1 and down 4 and sweep as his main form of playing the game. But I just don't want them to do that poorly.
Yeah, so you agree nerfing Jackie is not going to make the Shao Kahn player wake up and say, I can't wait to do down 4s and sweeps, right?
It definitely won't. No, it definitely won't.
So you mentioned to me earlier that one of the main reasons for the games, some of the problems with the game, isn't necessarily in the characters or whatever. It's the overall gaming mechanics, right? Can you go into detail on that?
Yeah. The general game mechanics, especially ones that have been hated on, like jump-ins, I believe are what really comes by the biggest issue in these games. The wake-up system, the wake-up roll is just one of the worst ideas of anything ever. Wake up forward roll being supposed to be, by the way, a defensive option is the best offensive tool in the entire game. It is the single best offensive tool. If you try and meaty somebody on a wake up, okay, let's say you down 1 meaty them and they roll forward. What is the most you can get after that? Well, you spend so much time meatying your down 1, the only thing you can really get after that is another down 1. True. So you have to do okay. You completely play a safe wake up. You play super safe against somebody's wake up. You down 1 and then you down 1 again. Okay, well now you're minus and now it's no longer your turn. After you just wasted your knockdown, you now have to play now you have to play their game because you just wasted your knockdown not getting hit and hoping they woke up buttons or something weird that you can hit.
Yeah, it seems like they have ways to kind of blow you up though, right? Like if you try to and we agree the delay wake up is okay the way they have it now. But if you try to meaty instant get up, they kind of have 2 options: roll or delay wake up. So the problem is, if you try to counter wake up roll, delay wake up still beats that. So even if you go to down 1 or throw, if you go to throw, you're dead. In fact, you guys may not know
Very
this.
Dead.
You may not know
this. You fucking
this.
Exploded.
If someone does delay wake up and you whiff a throw, they have enough time to then stand up and uppercut you, and you haven't recovered yet, and it's a guaranteed crushing blow. So it's pretty devastating. So
it's horrible, yeah.
A lot of times it seems like the person on the ground, they have 2 options to every one of yours, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And even the down 1, I've seen you do this. So talk to me about this. I've seen you do it several times. I've seen people knock you down, and then you delay wake up, and then they whiff their down 1. So okay, as soon as I get up, they're going to down 1, right? Because I might jump or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you wake up flawless block there down 1 and up to them. Talk to me about that. Like, what is the thought? Because we always hear down 1 is the safest thing. And yet I see you bait them into that. I'm going to do stuff to make them say, I'm going to down 1 this guy and make myself stay safe. And then you still find a way to launch them anyway, even though they're doing what we all say is the safe option.
That leads into just the fact that the wake up system plays off of everything in this game that is wrong. The flawless blocking up 2, which is honestly one of my most hated mechanics that has ever been added to a fighting game. Flawless block up 2 is a terrible mind game on any aspect. If you knock somebody down, you'll see Ninja Killer do this a lot because he's really good at it. You try and meaty him with a string, even if you try to meaty Ninja Killer with a string is like as many hitting as Aaron Black's 2-1-2, which is already a massive risk to go into that to begin with. If you try and meaty him with that, he'll delay wake up, and as soon as you stand up, he'll flawless block up to you. And there are so many examples of things like that where you just can't meaty people. You just can't. And if you do, your neck is on the line 100% of the time. If you try and hit somebody for being on the ground, you could always die for it. It doesn't matter how on point you are. It is probably more likely for me to hit you after I've been knocked down for you to hit me.
Yeah, it
because
sounds
of
like
the plethora of options.
Sounds like what you're saying is when you're on the ground, normally in fighting games, the purpose of being on the ground is meant to be a position of disadvantage because you earned the knockdown, you earned the advantage, right? Now, obviously, people on the ground shouldn't be helpless, but really, you just need tools to allow them to get up. Like, get off me, respect my space, right? And there should be a mind game with that. But it seems like in MK11, all the options on the ground are designed with the idea of, I'm going to get up with a combo. Right? People are not trying to get up. They're trying to get up with combos, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird. So take me through that process. You knock somebody down, what goes through your mind?
When I knock somebody down, 95% of the time, I leave. I think they're more dangerous when I knock them down. I'm not going to pressure them. What goes through my head is, I'm done now. I'm done. You can have it.
Is that
I am now
so
leaving them. Sorry, I am now leaving them because they have become more dangerous.
So by you hitting them and knocking them down, because everyone that's hearing this right now has been told forever, they're scrubs. They don't when they say the wake up system is whatever, just down 1. And you're telling me, no matter what you do, they always have the option on the ground to get up with a combo. Even though down 1...
There's nothing you can do.
Even when you do down 1, you are not hunting a combo on them. They still can get up and hunt a combo on you, right?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. They can. They always can.
You're saying the only safe option to do is to back away and let them get up.
You have to.
So
I think a lot of the time you just have to.
Why is wake up jump so good? Explain why. Is this why jumping is so good? Because you may just get clipped or get a small piece and then you get knocked down and you don't really care if you get knocked down in this game to begin with?
Yeah, if you just get clipped out of a wake-up jump, there's no downside to that. Okay, so somebody meets you with a down 1, they clip you. Okay, I'm back on the floor. Or, God forbid, you get a down 1 and you properly react and try and convert off of that. If you break out of that, you're going to get full combo for trying to convert off of that. So, combined with breakaway and how good being knocked down is, trying to fight somebody who wakes up jump is very annoying a lot of the time, and that's why it's so good. If you hit them out of it trying to play your regular game, it's almost better for them. Because now you've put them in an unstable knockdown where you're not entirely sure where everything's going to work out and how you're going to do it. And sometimes you put yourself in a position where you're going to get punished for trying to do a string on them getting knocked down. It is such a defense. It's not even that it's so good to maybe open somebody up with start pressure. It's so good on defense to wake up jump because you're just going to go right back into the same position you love, which is being knocked down.
I don't understand. Is being knocked down, is this an offensive position or a defensive position in this
game? It is a offensive position that has numerous defensive options.
So you're saying
It is by nature offensive to be knocked
so
down
wait a
in
minute.
MK11.
I want to make sure I heard you right. You're saying that being on the ground is one of the most powerful situations in the game.
It is one of the most powerful situations in the game. It is maybe the most powerful position you can be in.
So listen to what just happened. He's basically saying, outside of maybe plus 1,000 on hit advantage, that being knocked on the ground may be the most advantageous position in the game to the person who's grounded.
Yes. Yes. The person who is grounded is maybe at the biggest advantage that you can have in the game.
So you're standing and they're grounded, and they're at the major advantage.
I would say that they are at a immense advantage. I would say it's the most powerful position you can be in.
What would fix this? What would even this off to be a little more fair?
Completely remove forward roll, which I haven't even really gotten too much into. Completely remove forward roll. It is the biggest issue. Forward roll is what up to should have been, in a way. Not only should have been, but it's what up to represents. When you forward roll, it is the most offensive wake up tool that doubles as an incredible defensive option for some reason. But when you go into it, and what would I change about it? Remove forward roll. When somebody is knocked down, do not allow them to flawless block on a wake up, because you might not see that very often, but it has rippling effects. It affects the way people meaty somebody. And I would say buff up 3. Buff up 3. Make it so people use up 3. Make it so it's
What do you mean
usable.
buff up 3? How would you buff it?
I would buff up 3 by making all of them universally safe. If you want to jump them, that's fine. I think you should be able to jump them and get a punish. I think you should be able to back up and whiff punish them. But if you block them, if, God forbid, you actually landed on block, I think it should just be safe. Minus, make it so it's not your turn. Make it so you can't pretend like it's your turn after and flawless block. Don't let them flawless block after, because then that's just doubling as another offensive tool. But just make it so you block it, it's safe, it's done. And if you want to jump it to continue pressure, that gives up to a use, because you don't see people up to on wake up. It is supposed to be virtually half of the wake up game,
just roll
but you do
forward
not
or
see
roll
it.
backwards or something like that, right? I mean, there's no reason.
Remove roll forward. I would even say it would probably be better if they removed backwards roll as well. Just remove roll. You don't need roll in the game. All it does is create toxic situations that nobody likes. I have never done a forward roll and felt good about it after.
No, people will probably keep back rolling the game. Let me ask you, you brought up flawless blocking a couple times. The flawless block mechanic is something that pretty much gets praised as this great mechanic in the game. How do you feel about flawless block? Do you like it? Would you change how it's used in some way, shape, or form? What do you think about it?
I would say entirely remove up 2 as an option, aside from in the middle of strings and during jump-ins. And just leave it to up 3 if you're going to have it. If everybody loves the flawless blocking so much, just leave it to up 3. Sure. Don't launch me because I counter-poked you when I'm doing my minus down 1 as a desperate, okay, I need to press something, but I don't want to get, blown up for it. I'm doing my safest possible option, and then I get combo launched because, oh, well, they were minus, but since they weren't punishable, it's still their turn. It's always their turn if they're not punishable. I don't like the idea of flawless blocking. It creates situations that are just unfair for the level of offense that this game has. It's unfair.
Yeah, what I see you and a lot of other top players do, I see you sometimes do moves that are like, God knows how minus. And you treat it as plus. You attack, attack. And then the guy finally says, dude, I can't just stand here. And then he finally goes to down 1, flawless block up 2. Right?
Yep. And great. Okay, comboed you.
So, I mean, it seems like sometimes it's not even like, and of course the commentators are like, oh my God, flawless block. But isn't it true? Like, you're not, the window is so big on flawless blocking that you're not really a psychic.
It's super easy. It's incredibly easy.
You flawless block because it's their turn. You know they're going to poke, right?
Yeah.
There's no mix up. They're going to poke because it's their turn to poke, right? That's That's what it is, right?
Yeah, and a lot of characters have a lot of OSs. Like, as an example, Kodokan, I'll be reversing, flawless block up 2, but if I don't flawless block up 2, command grab comes out.
So if they did
It's
nothing, try to bait the flawless
unfair.
block.
If they do nothing, if they respect me, I grab them. And if I get right on when they're gonna press buttons, then I get a flawless block up 2 and a full combo.
And this is possible because of how big the window is to even initiate the flawless block. You can also import.
The window is huge. It covers so many options.
How do you feel about what I like to call the biohazard? You knock the guy down, you disrespect him, right? You get up 3'd. So the up 3 costs 1 bar of defensive meter as well, offensive. And then you're like minus 1,000. Out of minus 1,000, you still flawless block them and launch them.
And you get a full combo.
Don't you feel like you could literally, true or false, you could be minus 100 and still flawless block and launch them, right?
Yep.
So the
you just do it.
So the flawless block mechanic is also kind of flawed in there's never a safe time to attack, right? No matter how big your advantage is, the flawless block mechanic is always there. I mean, do you think it would be
no matter how plus on hit you are, if you try and touch them, you could be dead. You could die right there. It could be over right there.
So I would think one of the things the flawless block would be, not that it's a bad mechanic, but it should be you can't do it from negative frames. Like, they should have to do
that would be awesome. That would almost fix everything with it. I would love that.
Because right now it's not a neutral tool, because I would say the majority of flawless blocks come in a position when the opponent is minus from doing an attack, right? And they anticipate your counter poke, right? And most of the moves that get flawless blocked are like a down 1, down 3, like harmless pokes, right? And they're getting flawless blocked and launched.
Extremely harmless.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the breakaway system. I don't think anybody likes that. I'm curious to see your thoughts on this.
I think the breakaway system is very poor for this game, and honestly, it doesn't work with this game at all. The breakaway system alone creates tier differences between characters. It is why Geras is so good, because it gets so much damage that you cannot break away from. And that is a lot of the reason why Jackie is so good, getting 45% out of her non-breakawayable combo. And if you do break away, she gets even more. The breakaway is unfair, and I don't know why a game needs to have a breakaway that is unfair and favors characters. It doesn't make sense. It favors characters where characters will get literally more than double the damage as other characters, and it's always the top tier. Even Cetrion does not have combos that even launch the other player. It doesn't really... It's not fair. It's not fair to any of the cast. Noob Cybot as well, just as another example. We'll just do a combo into slide or a combo into down 2, and that's 26% no matter which option.
No matter what you do. And even if you break away, you still lost the damage.
Even if you break away. You lose even more if you break away.
So you don't really think there's an answer for breakaway. You would say go back to the breaker. There's like breakaway,
yep,
no matter how you slice it.
Especially this game would do even better with just a normal breakaway.
I'm curious what you think about the meter system. So you played MKX, right? I mean, you did play it some, right? And of course you played Injustice. And in these games, there was no passive regeneration. Meter was not assigned to one thing or another. You had to choose your meter wisely, right? Because there are people who would literally lose because they just managed their meter wrong, right? You would see that a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
That has been removed from this game altogether. What do you feel about the meter system? It seems like you took a lot of universal mechanics and put them in the game, right? Everyone's going to do this the same or that the same.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the meter system?
I would say the meter system is a interesting aspect for me personally. In general, I actually have no issue with the meter system. I think in practice, though, some characters get outrageously blessed by it, while others get completely shafted by it.
What do you mean by that? Give me an example.
So, let's do a good example, okay? Jackie's infinite pressure, okay? When Jackie gets in on you, or when she exists on the screen and she spends meter, she can leap from full screen and spend a defensive bar. Okay, that's great. But by the time she's done doing her pressure, she's going to have a defensive bar back. And Jackie is so mobile that she can just do nothing for an extended period of time. And by the time she decides to do something, she's going to have a meter back. She can choose when to go in, and whenever she does, she has meter to do whatever it is that she wants. Then you go to maybe some other characters. Shao Kahn. Somehow that guy is always starving for meter. Okay, so he hits you, right? He wants damage, so he goes for 2 bars every time. If you're not going for 2 bars as Shao Kahn, you're probably not doing it right, because when you rarely hit somebody, you want it to hit. Then after that, you now have a knockdown where you have no meter. And if you hit them for the next while, you're just going to do absolutely nothing. You're not going to do anything at all. Cetrion's the same way, or she'll just be away from you. But when she has meter, she'll just teleport all the way across the screen, and then by the time you get to her again, she can just teleport again. Or offensively. It's just a very strange...
What about Fujin? Does his cancels use defensive meter as well, right?
Yeah, what did you say? Sorry?
Fujin's cancels use defensive meter as well, correct? Like
Whose cancels? Sorry? Fujin's. Oh, yeah, it does. But yeah, again, that never matters. It never matters that it uses defensive meter. It never matters that it uses offensive meter with these characters, because they choose when they go in.
Well,
all of them choose when they go in.
Here's what's interesting. So it seems like some of the top characters, one of the reasons that makes them top as well is how they use the meter system. So we have a lot of characters, like Shao Kahn, for example, where everything he does is tied to his offensive bar, right? Everything.
RoboCop's another good example of needing enhanced low shot, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but everything they do is tied to just those 2 bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then other characters make use of all 4. So let's go with Jackie, for example, right? So Jackie gets in. Let's say she doesn't even use the enhanced leap. She gets in, regular leap, right? Goes into pressure. Boom, boom, amplified shrapnel. But you're like, okay, I'm going to play it safe because she might double shrapnel, right?
Right.
So then, boom, boom, amplified shrapnel. You stay blocking. Then she does boom, boom. You're like, I don't want to move because she might leap and shrapnel again, right? Bam, bam, right?
Yeah.
And then she does leap over other side, right? Bam, bam, and you're like, hold on. She still has that bar. I'm gonna take no chance. I'm gonna play it safe. Boom, boom, right? Leap other side again, right? Boom, boom, amplified shrapnel, right? And you're like, okay, now finally all the bar is off. And then she does back 1-2. By the time she's done with that, her next defensive bar back, and then she leaps all the way across the screen back to safety. So she just took 20% chip. And I think the real thing is whether it's Cetrion or Fujin or Jackie, and your other characters do this as well, they're able to use all 4 bar of their meters offensively to keep you in oppressive situations that are extended. Whereas the character like Shao Kahn, he's pretty much playing with 2. So even though the meter system is passive and meant to be fair, some characters can actually make use of all 4 bars where other characters only use 2, right?
For some very strange reason, yeah. They decided that was a good idea.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I noticed about it. So it just seems like if I were to say the top tier characters, I think it's kind of like a common formula. It's not really that they're actually broken per se. Like the word broke is overused in this game, right? I think we can agree
I would
with
agree.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're top for common reasons. One, they abuse the variation system, right? Most of their best moves are default or 1 slot moves, and their moves that are default or 1 slot can do multiple things without having to equip the option to do multiple things, right? So that's one. They can usually use their resources in multiple ways, all 4 bars instead of 2, right? They also usually have some way to circumvent neutral and the wake-up system that most characters are a slave to, correct?
Right.
And most of the time, those characters spend a lot of time in the air, so even if you clip them, the breakaway is always there. But if they hit you, they either do the same damage breakaway or not, have good armor breaks like Cetrion. So Cetrion and Fujin, good armor breaks. Jackie, doesn't matter if you break away, she does the same damage. Most of her damage is grounded anyway. So pretty much they abuse the meter system, the variation system, the neutral system, the wake-up system, breakaway system. They abuse all these systems, but the problem really is these systems ground characters like Shao Kahn. They are a slave to the system, so they cannot circumvent it. The variation system completely screws them. They play neutral. They don't have any neutral breakers. They have to deal with the wake-up system. They have to play by the rules. Whereas the top characters, it seemed like and Shiva's included in this, right? The variation system is a big reason why she has one of the most she has one of the most powerful moves in the game for no slots, right? As a matter of fact, you could say she's the biggest defender of the variation system, right? Because she has probably...
Honestly, maybe.
Yeah, she has probably the most powerful default move, right? Would be the stomp.
I think she has the single best move in the game, yeah.
Okay, so she fits in there because she gets around the wake-up system because you can't really up 3, up 2, forward roll, back roll. You're going to get stomped over and over and over again, right? I mean, there's no point. I see you do it a lot. Like, you'll stomp and you're like, they think I'm going to stomp again, so they're going to get straight up, right? And then you attack, right? And they say, oh, you want to attack? I'm going to lay on the ground or forward roll, back roll, up 3, up 2. And then you're like, oh, well, I'll do all that. I don't care. I'm going to stomp. So she abuses this. She really...
She abuses it as well, yeah.
She plays by the same rules as the top tier, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So why is it that people cry the most about her if she does exactly what everybody else who's top does for the same reasons?
They feel like that stomp. I think it's the idea of stomp that really fucks with them. When they go up, they think like, all right, I'll just give up here. Like, fuck it. What am I gonna do? You know, every top player I see says I got no option. You know, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Beat what they can? I think that's a large amount of what the general population think. But top players, I think they feed off of each other a lot too. They look at the move and like, okay, nobody else knows how to do it. Why would I know how to deal with it?
Exactly.
So it's just
They're
a
all looking
move
for the
that
next guy.
Nobody wants to lab.
Yeah, they're all looking for who's the guy that's going to come up with the one answer out, right?
And it's funny because I've seen videos on Shiva Stomp, and none of them accurately depict on how to get around it, or even what to do.
Or
I've
they're
seen
misleading,
lots
right?
of videos on it.
The video title will be, here's a surefire way to avoid it. So you watch this video, you say,
so many options.
Yeah.
So like I've seen this from everyone. This option right here is a really notorious one for me, is why I know people don't understand it. They show me stunt double Johnny as a solution, right?
That's a big one.
Like, all right, do this, no matter what they do, if you hit them, you're gonna, what's up?
They say, guaranteed. You have stunt double Johnny, you'll never see a stomp again. They see that. I hear that all the time.
Exactly. That's what they say. You've seen it too, right? Right. Yep. Stunt double Johnny, in reality, all you have to do with Shiva is you just aim the stomp, any direction you want, by the way, just aim the stomp, and then you get a free combo. You get a free combo because you can jump over them and full combo them, and it whiffs, and that's a punish. So these people that show like options against it, it doesn't help at all.
So
none of them,
being told,
none of them have properly labbed it. They looked at the cast, looked at the special move, and is like, I'm gonna try that special move against regular stomp, and it works. Put it in the video, put it in the montage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just
none of this stuff is helpful.
But I mean, these other top tier characters are top tier for the same reasons, though, as Shiva, right? I mean, you can lab against them all day long. Like, we hear people say lab against Jackie all day long, and yet you still see the best players in the world and not... True or false? People are not sure when to take their turn back against Jackie.
True.
At the highest level, they still don't know when to take their turn back, right?
Never.
Okay. True or false? Cetrion is not a zoner.
Not a zoner. Very true.
Okay, so explain. Everybody says she's a great zoner. Explain why she's not a zoner, and then explain why she's able to zone despite not being a zoner.
She is not a zoner because she is most powerful when she's up close to you. Her buttons, her rushdown, she has... The reason why she is the second best, aka top tier, everybody can agree she's definitely top 5. She is so good because she has some of the best rushdown game that is in this game. She is arguably the best for how much damage she does, which is not a whole lot when she actually hits you. If she was getting Liu Kang damage, charging, crushing blows, she would be known as the best rushdown character by a mile. But for what she gets for when she hits you, she is virtually the best rushdown character. But she's able to zone because her rushdown is so threatening. Her neutral is so good. She can zone you because of the threat of when she actually comes in, which is almost worse than her just throwing rocks at you all day.
But honestly is worse. When I think about a zoner, and I made this statement earlier when we were on a private call. Zoners normally are characters who work at range 7 to 10, which is 3/4 to full screen. They have very fast projectiles, and they recover fast. So they're at worst going to trade or be able to block right before your projectile hits. But they're at worst going to trade, and you kind of have to be proactive rather than reactive because the projectiles are so fast. The closer you get, the harder it is to react to them, right? So it allows them to start outside and work in as you approach because you have to commit to coming in, and then they can kind of catch you off guard, whatever. But Cetrion at full screen would actually normally be terrible, right? Like she would get outzoned by everybody from full screen.
She would.
Because Boulder's too slow. If Cassie and Cetrion were full screen normally, Cassie could do kneecap shot. And Cetrion,
she would beat Cetrion in zoning. Absolutely.
She would block the boulder, right? It wouldn't even be a trade. And if you look at Cetrion's move, Rockwall can't hit from full screen. Hell's Wrath can't hit from full screen. Boulders are 40 plus frames. But from that mid-range game, Cetrion excels. Everything hits, everything works, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why she can zone from full screen, like why can't someone like Cassie or RoboCop stand full screen and zone her then?
You can just teleport. At any point in time, you try to throw a projectile, I can just do one of the safest and best teleports in the game and full combo punish you for even trying to contest my zoning. Which is not what a zoner should do. Their option to zone should not be based around them instantly coming in and punishing you.
So what you're saying is she's a highly mobile, powerful offensive character who's also strong mid-range, who can also zone while simultaneously counter-zoning.
Yeah, it's almost like her projectile moveset is actually meant to counter-zone, but she uses it to zone.
Because she can't challenge it.
Because of her other tool set.
So she's a character who isn't... Her zoning doesn't free up the rest of her game. The rest of her game allows her to do something she probably shouldn't, right? Like
exactly.
If she didn't have a teleport, she would never be able to zone anybody. She would have to be all offense, right?
She would have to play in her mid range with Hell's Wrath. There'd be no other offense.
Exactly.
Oh, no other options.
Yeah, because she couldn't play from far range. She would get on zone. So a character like Shao Kahn is meant to be that. Let's go from the top to the bottom. So he's meant to be that character that it gets in. So obviously people would agree from range, Cetrion would have the advantage, right? But when Shao Kahn gets in finally on Cetrion, so he would presumably do better now that he's finally up close to her, right?
Nope, he does even worse. Presumably he should though, but he does even worse when Cetrion's near him. It's even scarier.
So she beats him from range, and when he can't counter zone because she can see all his projectiles from a mile away, easy teleport on reaction. And then he finally gets in, and she crushes him.
Absolutely destroys.
So he doesn't do anything well against her, right? He doesn't
do anything well. He doesn't win at any range at any time at anything.
Yeah, so that's obviously why, I guess, if you look at it. So what about people that say this game's got plenty of defense and plenty of zone? What about people that say the zoning is overpowered in this game? I hear it all the time. The zoning is good. The fireball stance got nerfed because they said it was too good zoning. And I don't think it was a good neutral tool, but it was never a overpowered zoning tool, right?
Oh, what are we talking about?
Remember the fireball stance? It was a good neutral tool, but it wasn't this brain dead zoning.
It was not overwhelming zoning. No, it was not. No.
So what about people that say the runaway and the zoning is too strong in this game? What do you feel about that? Like obviously at mid level you can win with that kind of stuff, right? But at the highest level, what do you say to people that say you can win at the highest possible level by keeping somebody out and zoning them?
I've never seen at the highest level somebody win by just zoning. I have never seen it. I don't even believe it can be done.
So you would say this is a one-dimensional game. It's about get in, get your offense. It's not about keep away.
There are very few play styles that you can have in MK11.
So it's very limited. It's very limited.
It's very limited.
What about those who say MK11 is a very neutral-heavy game? Would you say that it's more likely they're playing the bottom end of the tier list and not the top end?
Very. If you're playing MK11 and you think there's a lot of neutral, then I feel bad for you because your character's probably terrible.
Yeah, so the good characters, obviously. So
They don't play it.
they don't. So we
None.
went over
Zero.
what you would change with the game system, but we also agree that not only the top tiers so overpowered, so it's a kind of like they have, to use the saying we used to say, they have a lot of sauce on their bland spaghetti. Whereas Shao Kahn players, if you want to know what Shao Kahn's like, if you've never played him, for dinner tonight after listening to this, I want you to go to the store, buy some spaghetti, cook your spaghetti in a pot, put it in a bowl, don't put any sauce, no nothing on it, and just eat a plain bowl of spaghetti with no sauce and a glass of water. And that's what it's like playing Shao Kahn. Very bland. There's no sauce on his spaghetti, so to speak. It just seems like it's not very fun because a lot of these characters are so like generic, right? So down 1, down 4, sweep, throw. And the top tier characters, I should say, they're playing a totally different game. So what part of this do you think, is there some fault in the variation system? Is it kind of out of whack a little bit with how it's done?
I think the variation system by NRS was made by madmen that want to watch the world burn. They decided that move slots are completely they're random. They just decided, Joe push, 2 slots there. Leap, make that 1 slot. Let's give Hell's Wrath as default. Yeah, just like just make it random. Just throw everything in a big pool and everybody gets
Stomp,
random moves.
Default, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just really, I think the variation system is actually horrendous, and I think it's kind of a joke. I think it really is legitimately kind of a joke, sadly.
What, if anything, can be done to kind of fix that, to make characters more interesting? If you had any suggestion at all, what could they do?
Any suggestion on how to fix the variation system? A lot of me believes it's too far gone. I would not even remotely know how to fix it. Characters like Cetrion get everything they need just as default and still be a very, very strong character, still top 5, even if they had no moves, which is actually kind of crazy if you think about it, considering how good her custom moves are. But I wouldn't know what to do with the custom variations. I wouldn't know what to do with the variation system in general. I think the whole idea of it, I think this is the worst. They've only done it twice between MKX and this, but this is definitely quite a mile of a step down. I think it's very poor, and I wouldn't know how they fix it.
I have a few ideas. Maybe I can run these by you. I think, for one, the problem is obviously the slotting is an issue, right?
Yeah,
it just seems
definitely
kind of random, right? Like if you're a Katana player, you're like, well, why is my Adenian Fade, or my version of Jackie's Leap, so to speak, why is that 2 slots, whereas Jackie's is 1? Or even Cabal's Gas Blast is just 1, right? Or is it 2?
It's 2.
So Cabal's is 2, Jackie's is 1. So even within the moves, there's not consistency within similar moves, right?
Yeah.
Then Melina, I'd say the majority of her move list is just different versions of moves she already has by default, right?
Yeah, very accurate. Very, very accurate. Yeah. I don't know what kind of lazy work that was, but yeah, very accurate.
So I would say, like, let's take Melina, for example. Yeah, I think a great thing. I think if they took so the weird thing is, the formula to making every character very good is already there because we see it on the top tiers. I think Cetrion...
Yes, absolutely.
Cetrion is not a bad design. She's a great design if the rest of the game followed her blueprint, right?
In a way, I definitely agree, yeah.
So I think for the game to actually work, they would have to take Cetrion and say, well, why is she good? For one, look at all her default moves, right? And it's not about the number of moves, but it's about
quality.
It takes all those moves to collectively make her. And if you and look, every game is different. Somebody will say, well, look at MK9, some of them only have 4 or 5 moves each. That game was made different. These characters were made a little more shallow because they're made around a variation system. But Cetrion does cover a lot of things. So if you were to take Cetrion's variation idea and apply it to maybe someone else and say, Most of their good moves will be one slot. Obviously, you could try to balance the two, but the problem is you can't go backwards because if you make one slot moves two slot based on balance, you destroy the default variations already in the game, right? The game just kind of crumbles. So you would say, let's take a character like Melina. Give her straight side, ground side, air telekick by default, and then take those four slots and then replace them with four new moves, right? So they would have to make four new moves. She wouldn't be Cetrion level, but she would be a million places higher, sadly. Right? She'd be a million places higher, right?
And she'd be a hell of a lot more fun.
Take Scarlet, for example. You know, we know Subby Sub. She came by my stream one time and she said, you know what I'd love to do? I would love to put Scarlet's Blood Ball, you know, the down back 2, amplify, but I can't because it's 2 slot. You could take Scarlet, give her Blood Bowl by default, along with her other default moves, and then add another move to her custom variations, just another move to select. And of course, then she could go on and pick, you know, 1 slot teleport, 1 slot, unban Killer Clot, you know, because it shouldn't be banned, right? Do you agree, or you think it's...
Oh, no, it definitely should not be banned. I don't know why it's banned. That is an enigma to me, but yeah.
So I think the answer is there in, you know, fixing the slot value of the moves, where pretty much all the best moves are going to be 1 slot, much like Cetrion. And a lot of these characters' moves where they have to actually equip another way to do it are going to be default. Less conflicts that they got to change some commands, like why Katana has to choose angle down fan or straight fan, right? Things like that. So maybe change some things around like that. I think while you would never have your perfectly balanced game because there's this thing, I think it would boost the power level quite high. And then characters like Cetrion and even Shiva and Jackie, etc., they wouldn't seem all that far above, right? Because the main problem is not that you have to deal with their bullshit. It's they don't deal with anybody's shit, right? Outside of each other.
Right.
So I don't know.
I do get what you mean. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I think that's how I would do the variation system.
I think generally the way you say that, I definitely agree that they could just give a lot of characters just more moves by default, and that would make for a lot more fun of a game. I think that'd be a lot more fun and a lot less slanted towards the top tier that overrun this game. While I would definitely say that there are some exceptions to top tiers that I do think are an issue that I do personally believe need to be nerfed and fixed, like Jackie and Fujin for examples that don't play neutral in a game that I think is really well designed to play neutral, but characters like Jackie that you fight pretty much every other match at a high level, it ruins any aspect of that, any aspect of a lot of really, well, you know, I dare to say skill-based gameplay a lot of the time.
And you agree,
it's just, they're going to do what they want
too,
all the
right?
time.
Of characters that should be redesigned,
What's up?
right? You put Shiva in that thing too, right? Because somebody.
Yeah. Absolutely, redesign.
Okay. So just for consistency, because a lot of the Jackie players will say Shiva has to go, but Jackie is fine, Cetrion's fine, Fujin's fine.
No, I want it all to go. I want both those characters to go. I would love if Shiva was redesigned.
But you don't want them in the ground,
Jackie.
right? You don't want them in. Being a redesign doesn't mean you want them in the ground.
No, I don't even necessarily. Well, I mean, to be fair, I think Jackie's. I think she's so far ahead that there's nothing you can do to have her be with the rest of the pack without nerfing her. So I think she does need a nerf and a redesign. While most other characters like Fujin and Shiva, I think just need Fujin less so, but Shiva definitely needs a redesign. Absolute redesign from the ground up. The character doesn't work for this game. Just put in the work and redesign it.
What about, this is a good one. I find this hilarious. The two character communities that argue the most are Sub-Zero versus Sindel, right? Remember that big debate, who's more carried? Remember that? And every Sub-Zero was beefing with Sindel. How do you feel about those two characters?
To be honest with you, I think neither one of them are broken or like tippy top tier. I hate them both. I actually hate fighting them both more than any other character.
Mm-hmm.
I hate fighting Sub-Zero the most in this game, then Jackie, and then Sindel. Honestly, I dislike fighting them.
Have you ever? I have my thoughts on Sub-Zero. So here's how I see Sub-Zero. Tell me if I'm wrong. He's kind of weird because it's kind of like he's very weird, whereas they basically said you can't have your old defensive toolkit, right? You're not going to have clone.
Yeah.
Do we agree Arctic Trap is completely useless?
Yeah. Now, definitely completely
with the 9
useless.
frames
Absolutely
difference, right?
useless.
Yeah. And but when we say 9 frames, they told you in the combat cast you get up 4 frames faster. What they didn't tell you, and I want to give a shout out to the god Gilbag. So the first thing I did was Gilbags break this shit down because they're not telling us something. You actually get up in 15 frames to where you can move now instead of 20. So they took 5 frames off of your wake up animation, and you get up 4 frames faster. It's a 9 frame difference. So that move's completely useless. But it seems like they said you can't have your old defensive kit. But in a lot of ways, Slide and even Ice Ball are still kind of a remnants because they still have their defensive uses, right? They're still there. The problem is what Sub-Zero players do is they say, bitch, you better stay crouch blocking or you're dead. Or they'll freeze you from across the screen, right? And then they work their mix in. But it seems to me like Sub-Zero is undefendable. He's like, I don't know if you saw The Karate Kid, right? I think almost everybody has at this point.
No, I have, yeah.
There's a line in there where Mr. Miyagi says the crane kick, if done right, no Ken defense. If Sub-Zero is hot, you cannot defend against him, right? He is undefendable. If the Sub-Zero player is hot, right? Like he just can't guess wrong, you lose, right?
Yeah.
And I think
lose.
Is that what's irritating? Like you're like, you can lab till you're blue in the face. If this guy is on fire, you lose.
You just lose. You just lose. And there's nothing you could do to stop it.
But by likewise, if he's cold, time to pick another character and give yourself a rest, right? If you're the Sub-Zero player.
I would say even if you're cold, I honestly think Sub-Zero is an incredibly good character.
Of course.
If Forward 2 was a mid.
Now, there are those that will disagree. I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. It should be a mid. And they already have tools in the game that they can make better to compensate for that. Like they can they can kind of revert creeping ice, make it that little low launcher in the corner again, make it so it doesn't, no gap in it, because there would be no overhead, right? So there's no reason for it to have a gap and they can kind of fix Arctic Trap because you wouldn't be stuck behind a wall of 50-50s, and they can even do stuff with the ground puddle. So he would still be really, really good. You just wouldn't be feel like every time, because really the problem is...
I wouldn't feel like as soon as I got hit, then everything is out of my hands. Yeah. There's nothing I can do. So, and
you played Sub-Zero a lot. You play him a lot, and you played against him a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like, and people get called, so in Mortal Kombat, people get called, well, I like to say, they're called down one mashers. But isn't it true there are some characters in which, by the frames, mashing down one is better than blocking? Because, for example, let me give you an example of down one mashing. Say you're fighting Sub-Zero. Now, you know whenever it's his turn, he's not looking to poke you. He's going to ram an overhead or a low down your throat, right? Every single time, right? You know this. So if you do a move that's -4, well, you know if I'm -4 and I have a 7 frame down one, I can always down one, and he can't back 3 me, he can't overhead me, and he can't throw me, right? All he can do is down one me, right? So really, if you're like -4, -5, the worst thing to do is block, right?
Oh, yeah.
Against Sub-Zero?
That is the worst case scenario.
So if you're -4 or -5, which most of the moves in the game are, your best option is down one to force him to down one you, and then when he starts down one-ing you, then you backdash or whatever, right? But the last option is block, right?
Yeah, that is... Why would you want to let them 50-50 you? If you have an option to get around it that isn't death, just do it.
You would say, go ahead and down one me, and then take your shot. But I'm not going to give you your shot first, right?
Yes, exactly.
How do you feel about that? That there's actually a character in the game so scrubby. Like, people cry about Shiva. And I'm a Sub-Zero player, and I'm saying this. There's a character in this game so mindless, so scrubby, that it's actually better to say, look, if I'm -4 or -5, it's better for me to down one than it is to block.
Yeah. I hate it. I really do genuinely hate it. I don't see why they can't just adjust his tool set. Give him... what I wanted for him was make Forward 2-4 an 11 frame mid. Or something like that. That's just a safe mid cancelable string. Just give him something good up close like that. That makes it so that mind game not only doesn't exist, it's not something you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to press. Because now he's got a mid that he can confirm off of.
Yeah.
I really don't get it. I
think we lost.
Hello?
Yeah, lost you there. Yeah, I saw. So you said you said you don't get it. They should, whatever. I think the main problem people have is that it's a 50-50, right?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
What about Sindel? Now, I don't consider either one of those two broken. I've never been one to say some Sindel scrubby or whatever other people say.
Yeah, I don't think they're broken.
What about Sindel? Like, people cry about her all the time. All you cry about forward 4 and crushing blow scream. And what's the real truth about her?
So the real truth about her is that she's a character that can just forward 4 up 3 you to death, and you just really can't do anything about it. And that might sound like, oh yeah, I mean, I get it, but she's got all these other tools. Honestly, I have beaten some of the best players in the world with just forward 4 up 3 over and over again. And occasionally doing a low scream and, maybe a random raw overhead from full screen that she has for some reason. She can just do forward 4 up 3, and that's it. You don't play neutral, you don't play footsies that move as fast as hell. She outzones every character in the game because her low scream beats every other projectile. It goes underneath like everything and it wins every trade. So you can't zone her. And if you can't zone her, that means you have to go to her. And if you have to go to her, she has a completely safe neutral resetting move.
What about this? We hear all the time. I can't tell you, I've heard Sub-Zero players say Sindel carries, brain dead, auto neutral. Sindel players say Sub-Zero, brain dead, auto neutral. Is it possible neither one of those two character groups know what neutral is to begin with?
Yeah, yes, exactly. They don't know what that is. Exactly correct. You are so right.
Because I really think a lot of MK11 is, people talk about it is this neutral game. But we know it can be, right? The potential is there.
It can be.
Look,
yeah, it is.
And Shiva to me is proof that even though you admit she's kind of brain dead, you made the brain off name as well, right? She is kind of brain dead. But even you admit that when you have two characters that say F neutral, like if you look at Shiva normally, stomp, right?
Yeah.
Fujin normally, Skywalker back 2, slide, Skywalker amplify, etc. Which, by the way, tell them again in the corner, someone does Skywalker amplify. What is that's a launcher, right?
Oh yeah. If you Skywalker in the corner as Fujin, it's a +4 full combo launching move. It is insane.
So let me get this
You just get a plus combo launcher.
If they're from half screen, do back 2, Skywalker cancel amplify, and you're in the corner, they're plus?
They're +4 off of their combo launcher. So they're doing
a half screen combo launcher check that ends in +4.
That means you can play a grab mine game. Yep, it's insane.
Interesting. So, so really, if you look at the characters in the game, a lot of times, obviously the game is that to play neutral. But if you look at, like I said, Shiva versus Fujin, normally they're both F neutral all the time. But when two characters that play F neutral go up against each other, do you know what actually happens?
You get to play a little bit of neutral.
Because their tools cancel each other out. The Fujin player is going, I do want to slide here. And there's plenty of times when Shiva's just stomping and Fujin's doing his shenanigans.
Yeah.
But isn't it true there are plenty of times when Fujin's like, wait a minute. Let me just see what's going on. Let me do a gunshot. And Shiva's like,
pay attention.
And Shiva's like, hold on. Let me not stomp. Let me do a fireball. Maybe go into fireball stance. Let me amplify this. So you have, you see a match like that. Those characters tend to stomp less and fly around less. Same with Jackie against each other, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
in reality, when two characters have that type of neutral breaking mechanic, or they're equally powerful, they force neutral because there's that counter mind game. But when you're going up against a Shao Kahn or someone like that, you don't care, right? Because
those poor guys.
Because he can't bend it. So there's actually no neutral being played. So what's really happened is, in my opinion, and I want your opinion on this, you see a lot of times the best players more times than not, and this is in every game, the best players in the game also play the best characters in the game. Now, they're not the best.
Absolutely.
They're not the best because of that. But when you want to win on an even playing field and you're playing for money, why would you say, here's a guy
You pick the best.
at least of equal skill, maybe a little less skill, whatever, depending on your level. But this is the highest level. Why would I intentionally pick a lesser option when I have a better one for money? Right?
Right. Yeah, no, exactly.
So isn't it possible that if you're a Sub-Zero player or whatever player, Jackie, Shiva, a lot of times you're in positions where you do what you want when you want, right? You don't give a shit what they do. Because most of the characters in the game,
Doesn't matter.
most of the characters in the game do play neutral. They are a slave to the variation system. They are a slave to neutral, etc., right? And then you're a Sub-Zero player and you go against Sindel, or vice versa. Sindel go against Sub-Zero, or go against a Shiva or a Fujin. And your first thought is, this guy has no neutral. What you don't realize is you're so used to playing in matchups in which you can do whatever you want and you don't care at all. Like, when you don't understand, guys, when you're a Fujin or someone like that and you're playing up against a really bottom character, they still have to deal with your neutral, but you don't have to deal with theirs, right? Which makes it even more devastating, right? Because you still have that option. So if they're going against a character of their own, whatever, it's really the first time they're actually playing against someone else also neutral breaking, which leads to the whole, this guy has no neutral. In reality, it's just two characters. It's really neutral being played, but they feel like somehow what they're doing is breaking neutral because they're being forced to finally play it. Is this accurate or no?
No, that's very accurate. Especially between Sindel's, I think that's a very good example, for sure.
So in reality, this game is actually beautiful when you see the top against the top. That's really when MK11 flexes its muscle, right? And you see the beauty of the game, right? Like in reality, like I think when you actually see a Fujin versus Jackie, as crazy as it looks, you're really seeing a lot of the good things in the game. How the characters can have freedom, how the engine does flex its muscle, how they can force neutral and how that works, but how they can also be crazy at the same time. You see a lot of power of the game. It's just that as those characters go down to, I guess, the unfortunate characters, then you see Shiva doing stomp, stomp, stomp. And as you pointed out, unfortunately, some of those characters, they really can't do shit about it, right? So it looks really bad when you watch somebody do stomp, stomp, stomp. And it's almost like you're like, look, man, you know, like you admit you actually can't stomp a character like Fujin for eternity, right? How about Cetrion? Does she have any options or?
No, yeah, Cetrion's got really good options too.
Jackie,
great options too if you lab it.
how about Liu Kang?
Liu Kang doesn't though. He's fucked. He's fucked.
Okay, but I would say most people don't have any sympathy for that.
Yeah, I don't have sympathy for that either. Noob Cybot also fucked.
Yeah, I mean there are situations. So but usually when the top are against the top, you do see you do see more neutral being played. The top characters versus the top characters, right? You see more of the power of the game. I mean, wouldn't you think that's the best thing then, to just kind of take that and just scale it downward? Because they already have the formula in place, right? What makes these characters good would make any of the characters good, right? If they applied that formula?
Yeah. If they toned it down a bit and gave it to everybody, I think I'd be definitely up for that.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. You see, there is plenty of neutral in the game. The problem is, the reason why you think your other character plays no neutral, this character plays no neutral, more times than not, it's you're just for the first time fighting a character who does what you do. It's not really that there's no neutral or they have no neutral, etc. It's so, yeah. Overall, closing thoughts here. What's next for you tournament-wise? What are your thoughts on MK11? Do you think there's going to be a Combat Pack 3? Where would you like to see the game go in the future?
I would like to see the gameplay go to... Well, yeah, I would like to see the power level raised as a whole, for sure. I think it could be a lot of fun if they balance it well, and they don't, well, mess it up, hopefully. And change the wake-up system. I do think there will be a Combat Pack 3 from everything I've heard or can see. I think there will be a Combat Pack 3. And I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I do like the game. I do like the game. There's just... a lot to complain about because I do like it and I want to see it do better. Things like that. But where I see from it in the future, I hope and believe that it would do better. I just hope it'll be better than I might think, I guess. I have a lot of hope for the game.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if we didn't love the game and want it to be good, if we weren't passionate about it, we wouldn't even care. We wouldn't spend all day
We would
complaining
not
about
talk
it.
about it.
We would just move on to play something else and not think twice. We wouldn't even care, right?
Right.
The reason why we keep harping on this stuff is because, and I think for me, it's right there. Right? We see the potential of the game. If it was something where there was no potential, the game was truly just screwed, right? And there was no hope, we would say, whatever. But the potential is right there, right? To be like an outstanding game, which is what I think drives us crazy the most, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but anyway, I want to thank you for joining me, Tigers. Wish you all the best of luck in your future tournaments. Obviously, you're my favorite player to watch. I won't even restream a
Thank
top
you.
8 if you're not in there stomping people. Like
I appreciate it.
when you made top 8 at the last second, people were like, "Oh, Tigers lost," or whatever. And the Destroyer tournament, and they were like, "Wait a minute, Tigers made top 8." I was like, "We're restreaming it, boys. She's back. She's back. She's back." Honestly, your
appreciate it.
gameplay is some of
Thank
the
you.
most hype stuff in the game. People get bored of saying the same old stuff. So when you come up, everybody cheers for you to win. Like, there's not a single person who doesn't want to see you win by just stomping people. So
I appreciate that. Yeah.
not a problem, man. Well, thanks so much for joining me. Guys, in the comments, let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this? Any questions you would have that maybe we might have Tigers on as a future guest on our next podcast with Rio? We just did one with him as well. So feel free to check that out over at Rio's podcast channel. But if there's any questions or any things you want to ask, leave so in the comments. Leave me some suggestions or ideas, and we'll be sure to see if we can get that done for you. Tigers, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.